Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here, and we have a bit of an update on the war crimes case we currently have going on involving a U.S. sailor. Prosecutors, NCIS investigator accused of misconduct in war crimes case. Special Warfare Operator Chief Eddie Gallagher in Iraq in 2017. A motion filed in Tuesday in court in California threatens to derail the entire war crimes case against Special Warfare Operator Chief Eddie Gallagher. Drafted by Gallagher's civilian defense attorney, Timothy Parlatore, it paints a portrait of stonewalling prosecutors, refusing to turn over evidence that could clear the embattled chief and a federal cop who allegedly went rogue by cherry-picking witness statements to salvage a rickety case. Rather than conduct a proper investigation in search of the truth, the agent began with a predetermined conclusion and went about finding evidence to support that conclusion, while ignoring or suppressing anything that conflicted with that narrative, Parlatore wrote in his filing. Gallagher, 39, is accused of stabbing to death an unarmed and seriously wounded Islamic State prisoner of war during a 2017 deployment to Iraq, plus shooting an old man and young girl in a violent spree that prosecutors contend may have claimed hundreds of lives. Although the motion accuses prosecutors of withholding evidence benefiting Gallagher, records independently uncovered by Navy Times, the motion expends much of its ink on the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, an agency Parlatore accuses of botching the entire probe. As the lead investigator on the case, NCIS Special Agent Joe Warpinski is in Parlatore's legal crosshairs. Warpinski is accused of working to ensure that witness interviews were documented in a manner that would minimize anything that did not support his predetermined conclusions, according to the motion. Mid-2018 interviews with alleged witnesses against Gallagher were videotaped by NCIS agents and turned over to the defense attorney months ago, but no one apparently recorded a round of re-interview sessions in January 2019. Instead, NCIS reports about what the witnesses allegedly said appear to have been reconstructed from Warpinski's notes, which no one on the defense team has seen, according to Parlatore's motion. Parlatore's motion accuses of Warpinski of acting like a gatekeeper of exculpatory evidence, excluding witness statements that hurt the case against Gallagher. To Parlatore, it's all a pattern of conduct he believes calls into question every non-videotaped interrogation NCIS has conducted in this probe. A list of questions about those bombshell allegations sent to NCIS officials by Navy Times went, for the most part, unanswered. After citing the NCIS policy of never commenting on ongoing investigations, however, spokesman Adam Stump said all agents are expected to uphold the highest standards of professional conduct when conducting investigations. Navy Times sent a similar request for comment about Parlatore's motion to the Office of the Judge Advocate General of the Navy, which oversees the service's prosecutors. In a written statement emailed to Navy Times, OJAG spokesman Patty Babb said her department's policy is to not comment on the specifics of ongoing litigation that may prejudice the due administration of military justice. Technically, Navy Times shouldn't even have Parliament or Parlatore's motion. During a Friday hearing at Naval Base San Diego, Captain Aaron Rugg, the military judge hearing the Gallagher case, issued a blanket gag order on all filings in the matter. But Rugg's ruling not only sped up the stream of secret records and internal military messages flowing to the Navy Times, it indirectly triggered Parlatore's filing to dismiss the entire case. It all began last week when the Navy Times began trying to make sense of a string of email messages exchanged in early April between prosecutors and Brian Ferguson. Ferguson is an attorney and Air Force reservist who represents a group of SEAL eyewitnesses who have expressed reluctance in participating in the NCIS investigation and Gallagher's court-martial trial, which is slated to begin on May 28th. According to the email messages uncovered by Navy Times, a SEAL sniper was forced to conduct a second round of interviews with Warpinski and prosecutors on January 10. In his message about the interrogation, Ferguson raised red flags about how prosecutors and Warpinski later ended up describing the petty officer's statements to Gallagher's defense attorneys. According to Ferguson's message, the sniper said he never saw Gallagher shoot an elderly Iraqi man on Father's Day 2017, and couldn't remember other details tied to the alleged war crime. The petty officer also indicated that his memories about meetings regarding an alleged command cover up of the war crimes were foggy and not very clear and a blur, especially discussions about the purported murder of the Islamic State fighter, which he insisted he did not witness. That was interesting to Navy Times because a January 15th write up of the re interview session by Warpinski stated that the SEAL sniper knew that Gallagher had shot him by process of elimination. The elderly victim was in the chief's field of fire, and nobody else in their tower could have taken that shot. When Navy Times tried to talk to Ferguson about the leaked emails and the SEAL sniper's recollection of events, he gave a firm no comment. Ferguson also refused to talk about a warning typed at the top of that and other messages that referenced Castigar v. U.S. That's a landmark 1972 U.S. Supreme Court ruling that found the government can use immunity deals to compel a witness to testify, a powerful tool by federal prosecutors to hurdle Fifth Amendment rights to avoid self-incriminating testimony. Prosecutors had tried and failed to prod Rugg to remove Ferguson as the SEAL sniper's attorney, arguing that he was using him and more than a dozen other holdout witnesses to secure broad immunity deals for the entire group, an allegation the Texas attorney strongly denied. But a Castigar assertion also indicated that Ferguson was trying to protect his client from prosecutors in case they tried to use evidence against him derived from a reinterrogation meeting or, potentially, a proffer session. In proffer sessions, potential witnesses discuss their knowledge about a crime with prosecutors with the assurance that their words won't be used against them. The rules dictating the meetings are often guided by Queen for a Day letters hashed out between prosecutors and defense attorneys ahead of the sessions. Navy Times already had a stack of similar documents, but a proffer request from Ferguson on behalf of his client wasn't in it. If one existed, however, it would have been supplied to the defense team, so Navy Times contacted Parlatore. Parlatore not only didn't know anything about a proffer session, he didn't realize that Ferguson had raised pointed questions about how NCIS and the prosecution described testimony by that SEAL sniper and other witnesses in reports shipped to him by the defense team. Parlatore hung up, but according to another string of emails provided to Navy Times, he apparently got off the phone to immediately contact Gallagher's prosecutors, Commander Christopher Zaplak and Lieutenant Brian John from the Navy and Marine Corps Captain Connor McMahon. That sparked another series of email messages from McMahon and Zaplak that didn't seem to answer Parlatore's questions. So the defense attorney reached out to Ferguson, who supplied the emails to him according to the motion. On Monday, Zaplak finally sent the same evidence to Parlatore, too. According to his motion, Parlatore found the messages illuminating because they allegedly helped to prove that stonewalling prosecutors had made it a habit of turning over sanitized reports typed by Warpinski. According to Parlatore's motion, that wasn't the only problem with Warpinski's handling of the investigation, which he described as extraordinarily poor and deeply flawed. Parlatore's motion accused Warpinski of fudging the timeline of the shooting, with Ferguson's client saying the man might have been shot up to 20 minutes before he saw his body. Instead of an old man, the alleged victim might have been as young as 31 years of age, but more likely in his 40s, and in the same field of fire of other snipers, the motion revealed. And although another SEAL sniper claimed Ferguson's client told him that Gallagher fired the shot that struck a girl walking along the Tigris River in July of 2017, other evidence seemed to indicate that he never said that at all, and it remains a mystery how the other sniper came to believe the chief gunned her down. Based on new evidence, Parlatore's motion called the two attempted murder charges tied to the old man and the girl absolutely unsustainable, and urged that they be immediately dismissed, or at least broken off from the main murder trial. Reached in Manhattan on Wednesday, Parlatore told Navy Times that Rugg's gag order prevented him from specifically discussing his allegations, but he urged NCIS and the Pentagon to begin probing the investigators and prosecution team. This investigator is unusually incompetent in this case. Someone should look into his credentials, Parlatore said. If they had really good evidence against Gallagher, they wouldn't need to engage in this kind of gamesmanship. There's no place for this in the criminal justice system, especially when we're trying to put an innocent man in prison for the rest of his life. Rugg has yet to issue a ruling on Parlatore's motion. This entire case is just another attempt to hamstring the military, basically. We've had people claim that double taps when entering rooms and clearing them is overkill, and it's culturally insensitive, and it's murder, and so on and so forth. For those who don't know, a double tap is where, after you see someone laying down, apparently dead, you put a round in the head. Military uses this. Cops have used it, SWAT teams mostly. But the reason is there is historical evidence, a lot of it, of when a room is just sprayed with bullets or an explosive is set off, someone may not even be hurt. So they lie down and appear to be dead until people walk past them, and then they rise up and start attacking. When you're dealing with terrorists, who, by the way, have no Geneva Convention protection, they're not an organized military, they're not wearing a uniform, they don't fight for an organized country. When you're dealing with terrorists, you better assume everybody on that floor that has not been hit in the head and obviously been killed is a threat. But of course, liberals demand that that process be stopped. And had they won, and then that process stopped, and an entire fire team be killed by one, well, that's just the risk we take when we try to be humane. Yeah, humane to people who regularly behead homosexuals and Christians and others who just aren't Muslim, or beat women to a bloody pulp, or pour acid on their face because they dared not cover themselves head to toe when going out, or who don't let women drive, work, go to school, who marry off their daughters at age 12. I personally have no qualms about Eddie Gallagher taking down an ISIS fighter and making sure he's dead. I have no qualms about the double tap. Based on what I've read here alone, not to mention everything else I've read on this case, the old man and the little girl, I don't even really believe they were ever there, let alone shot by Chief Gallagher. This entire case stinks of corruption. It stinks of some activist idiot at NCIS, or worse, in the Office of the Judge Advocate General of the Navy, who wants to make an example out of Chief Gallagher to put the fear of God into soldiers serving overseas so that they second guess every move, and ultimately it will cost American lives. I'm not going to say that I don't feel bad about collateral damage or civilian casualties, but in a war where terrorists are dressing up as civilians and using children to bomb Americans, you're never going to avoid it. And I'm not willing to let terrorists murder millions because there's a possibility that that child someone just put on the road marching towards you, that you can't see their face or anything, may or may not have a bomb strapped to them, rigged to a phone that the person in the car watching them is going to dial. Chief Gallagher acted as he saw fit in a theater of war. And now we have activists after him who are refusing to share evidence which is required by law. And apparently we have a judge who may not rule that's wrong. But I've talked more than enough about this one. Pardon me. Let me know what you think. Keep it civil as always. We do not learn from argument, we learn from debate. Also remember to like, comment on, and share this video, as well as to subscribe and activate notifications so that you are among the first to know about any new content as it is posted. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.